Greetings and welcome to the Astronomy Picture of the Day podcast. Today's picture for February 23rd of 2025 is titled Saturn in infrared from Cassini. So what do we see here? Well, here we see an image of the planet Saturn, and this was imaged by the Cassini spacecraft back in 2014. And that was taken in various colors of infrared light. Now, infrared light has a range of colors, just as ordinary visible light does. We have the spectrum of colors that we're used to seeing, of red through violet. Well, off beyond the red, there is a whole nother spectrum there of various colors in the infrared. Now, of course, we don't see them as colors because our eyes are not sensitive to infrared light, but we can measure their intensities and then plot them out in a false color image. So here we see several things, including the hexagon at the north pole of the planet. And that is an area about the size of Earth. So if you get a concept of how big Earth is here and how large this large planet is, that large polar hexagon would span something about the width of our own Earth. Now, the polar hexagon is unusual for its shape. Most things we look at in astronomy tend to be circular or elliptical, and not something that is a shape like that. We don't tend to see squares and cubes in astronomical objects. So it's unusual, and its stability is something that still astronomers are researching and try to understand why it appears like this and how it manages to remain stable over longer periods of time. Now we can also see the rings of the planet there, and we can see them scattered around. Now, this is not a complete image of the rings, but you can see part of the rings up on top. And then off to the left, you don't see the rings because of the shadow of the planet cast on the rings. And Saturn will cast a shadow just like any other object, and therefore block out the rings, that portion of the rings that are behind it. Now you not only see the shadow of Saturn on the rings, but in the front, in the lower right, you can see the shadow of the rings on Saturn. And that will happen as well. Now, the rings are not solid particles, but there are enough particles there that they can block out the light from the sun and cast a shadow. Now, some of the thinner areas will actually give us patterns, and we will start to see some of the structures within the rings alternating light and dark bands. And we can see some of that structure in the image rings that we see here, where we can see that the rings are not nice and smooth and not just a single color, but actually have a variation there of brightness and of concentration as to how many particles are there. Now, this was imaged by the Cassini spacecraft back in 2014, several years before its mission ended. And in fact, in 2017, the spacecraft crashed into Saturn in a planned maneuver to eliminate any chances of contamination. So to dispose of the craft after its mission had been completed, and as it was running out of maneuvering fuel to be able to keep in contact with it, its final direction was to plunge into the planet, giving us as much information on its atmosphere as it could before it was finally destroyed. So that was our picture of the day for February 23rd of 2025. It was titled Saturn in infrared from Cassini. We'll be back again tomorrow for the next picture, previewed to be lava sky. So we'll see what that is about tomorrow. And until then, have a great day, everyone, and I will see you in class.